Hello and welcome to Nick's Nerd News. This is where you come to listen to breaking news when it comes to the nerd world. That means we have breaking video game news, movie news, and TV news. If you want to hear about the latest games, the latest movies, and everything else, stick around. Because here's your host, Nick, from a tiny studio in San Diego.
Hello, is it me you're looking for? I can see. Oh, hey guys, I didn't see you there. It's me, Nick, the host of Nick's Nerd News. How are you guys doing, huh? It's September 27th. That's right. Wow, September. The year's almost over. Episode 281. How are you guys doing? You guys having a good time? I'm having a good time. A lot of crazy things happening this week, and I mean a lot of crazy things are happening this week. The writer's strike is over as of today. How wild is that, huh? It ended. They met for like 4 or 5 days straight, came to an agreement on like Sunday night. Boom, bang, done. It's over. But as that strike ends, SAG-AFTRA is looking to they've authorized a strike against video game companies. So if negotiations fail at any point, that they could go on strike against voice actors and likenesses in video games, which could cripple that industry for quite a while. It's wild. It really is. And then, like, late this afternoon, we learned from Bloomberg, Jim Ryan's going to step down from Sony, head of PlayStation, in the spring, which is another wild thing. Like, craziness going on all over today. In this week. A lot of stuff going on. Then, as we've been doing with, even though the writer's strike is over, the actor's strike is not. So I'm going to keep talking about movies. I know we barely got through the 80s. We didn't even get to the 90s. I did kind of start a little late on doing that. I think we're going to keep doing it, though, even if the SAG strike ends in like a week or 2 weeks or a month or whatever. I'm still going to keep doing it because I think it's good to have some. We don't talk about old movies a lot on here, right? So we'll see. But today we're going to do 80s Family, and this was a harder list to make than I did ever expect it to be. So 80s Family movies, and I'm sure you're going to be shocked by one or two of the movies I put on this list. But we'll get there, or maybe where some other movies lie in my top 10 80s Family movies. So that's going to be at the end of the show. That's kind of the big stories we're going to talk about, so we're not going to waste any time there. But general housekeeping, as usual, don't forget to check out nicksnerdnews.com. It's our fun, handy-dandy website. You guys can listen to the show in your browser. You can find links to all of our places where you guys can subscribe, like, share, upvote, downvote, thumbs up, thumbs down, give reviews, stars, whatever you guys want to do. We're on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Odyssey, Amazon Music. I'm sure there's plenty others that I just can't currently think of, but we're just about everywhere. Also, while you're there, check out our social media tab. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on Threads, we're on Twitter. I'm on TikTok, so follow my personal TikTok for show updates. That's the Nick DeFalco. Nick's Nerd News for all of our show pages, though. 2 TikToks is more than necessary, if you ask me. So we really only have one TikTok. So there's that. Otherwise, hopefully you guys are enjoying week in, week out. Let's not waste any more time and get right to the show, shall we? what's going on in video game news, huh? Well, actually, quite a bit, surprisingly. So, Tokyo Game Show, we kind of had a wrap up last week. The Xbox showcase was the last of it, really. So we got some news. Octopath Traveler is coming to Xbox Game Pass in 2024. Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney Trilogy was announced, coming to console and PC yesterday, actually. Forza, of course, is releasing on October 10th. You can get it day one on Game Pass. They showed off a new track that's set in Japan. A new fun animated style game, Mineko's Night Market, releases October 26th. Like a Dragon Gaiden, the man who erased his name. I can't read my own handwriting. Releases November 9th. And then Like a Dragon Ishin is coming to Game Pass this year. Persona 5 Tactica on Xbox and PC November 17th. Persona 3 Reload February 2nd. And then Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes coming on the 23rd of April next year. So those were some of the biggest announcements off of Xbox's digital showcase at the Tokyo Game Show. That wraps up Tokyo Game Show. Let's talk about some other things. The game I played the most over that first year of COVID, Call of Duty Warzone. Warzone 1.0, Warzone 1, whatever you want to call it, officially shut down its servers last week on the 21st. Yes, it's quite unfortunate as they shift everything fully over to Warzone 2.0. Warzone has officially shut down as many gamers mourn the loss. And speaking of that, it was announced that Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 and Warzone 2.0 would be getting a Diablo 4 crossover in the form of Lilith and the angel's name I can't remember as playable skins for Call of Duty Warzone and multiplayer in Modern Warfare 2. I literally just said it and couldn't think of it. Anyway, as we mourn that loss, we've learned also that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth via Square Enix will have a new episode focused solely on Zack, the other soldier in the Final Fantasy VII storyline. No surprise there, as his star has been rising greatly in the Final Fantasy VII world in general lately. Ubisoft, in a strange post that wasn't even with massive fanfare, announced that Massive Games would be working on The Division 3. So apparently that's going to be their next game after Star Wars. What are they calling that game? So that will be their focus after Star Wars Outlaws. A lot of people did not think there was going to be a Division 3. And it looks like there will be. So, Turn 10 and Xbox have announced that you will be able to start preloading Forza Motorsport onto your PCs and consoles. On Steam, if you guys want to know the download sizes, Steam will be 108 gigs. The Microsoft Store version will be 119 gigs. On Series S, it's 100. And on Series X, it will be 133 gigs. So you better hope you have 133 gigs available on your Series X if you want to preload Forza Motorsport, essentially the soft reboot of the series. It's technically 8, but also technically a reboot. Quantic Dream has come out and said that it is still currently working on on Star Wars Eclipse. No official word has been said on it in quite some time, but it is still being worked on, according to them. I think it's set in the High Republic as well, so don't be worried about that per se. And moving on over to Xbox, the Activision deal, the Activision buyout, is essentially free and clear to move forward as of now. The CMA, the Competition Markets Authority in the UK, has essentially approved the deal after the rework that was announced where they were going to be selling their cloud rights to Ubisoft, if I remember correctly. And it looks like the deal will close by the end of October. So After all the back and forth they've been going on with them, the CMA has now said that it, quote, has limited residual concerns, unquote, and essentially provisionally approved the sale. The CEO of the CMA, Sarah Cardell, said, quote, the CMA's position has been consistent throughout. This merger could only go ahead if competition, innovation, and choice in cloud gaming was preserved. In response to our original prohibition, Microsoft has now substantially restructured the deal, taking the necessary steps to address our original concerns. It would have been far better, though, if Microsoft had put forward this restructure during our original investigation. This case illustrates the costs, uncertainty, and delay that parties can incur if a credible and effective remedy option exists, but is not put on the table at the right time, unquote. So, essentially, she just approves it, like you guys should have done it sooner. Brad Smith, president at Microsoft, said, quote, we are encouraged by this positive development in the CMA's review process. We presented solutions that we believe fully addresses the CMA's remaining concerns related to cloud game streaming, and we will continue to work toward earning approval to close prior to the October 18th deadline, unquote. Bobby Kotick had something to say, but I'd rather not give voice to that man any more than I have to. So it looks like this deal is essentially done, right? There's nothing holding it back at this point. Literally nothing. It will more than likely close. Phil Spencer opened up and did say as well, quote, I want to make sure people know that there's work to actually move games to Game Pass. So for people who think the deal is going to close and then everything's available, that's not true. And it hasn't been true in other acquisitions that we've done. There's work for us to go do, just mechanical work for us to go do. So it'll take us time, definitely time, to get the games in the portfolio, unquote, in response to questions being asked if Call of Duty would be put on right away. But it looks like Microsoft officially owns Activision Blizzard. Well, at least it's essentially a done deal now. And I'm sure things will start moving as soon as possible. So after intense backlash over the last few weeks, Unity has announced they will roll back some aspects of their runtime fee policy that they had announced. So some of the biggest changes, things that were originally announced about charging depending on install bases and things like that. There will be no runtime fee on games built on Unity Personal, which it will remain free. They will be increasing the financial threshold of Unity Personal from $100,000 to $200,000 and remove the requirement to use the Made with Unity splash screen. They also said, quote, no game with less than $1 million in trailing 12-month revenue will be subject to the fee, unquote. That was Unity's Mark Whitten on a blog post. They also changed up how Unity Pro and Enterprise work, saying, quote, the runtime fee policy will only apply beginning with the next LTS version of Unity shipping in 2024 and beyond. Your games that are currently shipped and the projects you are currently working on will not be included unless you choose to upgrade them to this new version of Unity. For games that are subject to the runtime fee, we are giving you a choice of either a 2.5% revenue share or the calculated amount based on the number of new people engaging with your game each month. Both of these numbers are self-reported from data you already have available. You will always be billed the lesser amount, unquote. Unity's Jason Wyman will also hold a fireside chat. He held a fireside chat last week, I should say, announcing the new revisions. He did apologize, and he did follow up saying, quote, we should have spoken with more of you, and we should have incorporated more of your feedback before announcing our new runtime fee policy. Our goal with this policy is to ensure that we can continue to support you today and tomorrow and keep deeply investing in our game engine. You are what makes Unity great, and we know we need to listen and work hard to earn your trust. We have heard your concerns, and we are making changes in the policy we announced to address them, unquote. So, we'll see what happens. I saw some developer even canceled a game they were going to release on Switch because of it. Whole lot went on and happened, and probably shouldn't have, but it's unfortunate that it did. And you know what? I'm sure things are going to change and be a lot better for Unity moving forward, hopefully. So we'll see what happens, and ultimately if this ends up being a good thing for Unity or a bad thing. But we'll find out, I'm sure. Devs won't be quiet. I can assure you of that, at least. EVE Online has announced a new mobile spin-off set in the EVE universe, EVE Galaxy Conquest. So if you've ever wanted to hop in and not hop in fully into the main game, here's your chance. That's wild, man. Valve has pretty much come out and said don't expect a Steam Deck 2 anytime soon. It'll probably be several years before that ultimately comes out. Did you guys just buy a PS5, any of you, recently? Well, if you did, you can claim a free game. So now, between now and October 20th, if you buy a PlayStation 5, you're entitled to a free PS5 digital game of your choosing. And it's only if you bought the console since September 20th. So, like if you guys go to buy it for Marvel Spider-Man 2, you can get, there's a small list of games. Like I said, they're all digital. And the list of games available are Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales, Marvel Spider-Man Remastered, God of War Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, Demon's Souls, The Last of Us Part 1, Sackboy: A Big Adventure, Returnal, Uncharted Legacy of Thieves Collection, and Death Stranding Director's Cut. To redeem it, buy and activate your new PS5, go to the PlayStation Store, look for a special banner, select your free game, and download it, and it's yours. So just be on the lookout if you guys are buying a PS5 between now and October 20th, the day that Marvel Spider-Man 2 comes out, you can get your free game. Cameron Moynihan, the star behind the Star Wars Jedi games, of course, as Cal Kestis, has come out and said that it looks like a third game may be in the works. And let me see. He said that this was at the Ocala Comic-Con on September 16th in Ocala, Florida. He said, quote, "We're working on the third. We're in the process of doing it right now. That's a big undertaking. There have been some conversations so far. Hopefully, when all things are said and done, we'll be able to go in and make something really cool for you guys again," unquote. So, Stig Asmussen from Respawn has always said he sees it as a trilogy. Hopefully that actors' strike against gaming companies doesn't happen, because if they do, that game's going to get delayed big time. Do you guys live in Australia? Well, guess what? New rules have been put in place regarding gambling, loot box, and other content in video games. Starting in September of 2024, any game featuring simulated gambling, such as casino-style games, will be rated R18+, which is a legally restricted category in Australia. Cannot be sold to people under the age of 18. Games, and another new rule, quote, "games containing in-game purchases linked to elements of chance, including paid loot boxes," unquote, will be M-rated games. Games rated M in Australia are recommended for people over 15, advisory only, not legally restricted. So it only applies to games released September of 2024 and forward. That is a very interesting rule for sure. I guess, wow, this is via IGN. According to pre-pandemic figures, Australia has the greatest per capita gambling loss in the world, and that's via the Sydney Morning Herald, a staggering 40% clear of second place. Holy shit, a lot of degenerate gamblers, and no, they're not degenerates, a lot of people with gambling issues in Australia. Hopefully they can get some help. I can see why this rule would have been instituted for gaming and would require a legally binding 18+ restriction. You guys ever play any games from Platinum Games? Well, Hideki Kamiya, the man behind Platinum Games, is leaving the legendary studio. Unexpectedly announced that he would be leaving. He directed Resident Evil 2, chief creator of Devil May Cry, of course was going to work on Scalebound for Microsoft and Platinum, And interesting. Published to his Twitter account, the 52-year-old developer said, quote, "This came after a lot of consideration based on my own beliefs and was by no means an easy decision to make. However, I feel this is the outcome for the best. I will continue to create in my Hideki Kamiya way. I hope you'll keep your eyes peeled." Unquote. So it looks like maybe he's not going to be at Platinum anymore, but he might still be working on games. He did found Platinum in 2006. A lot of their games have been released by Capcom as well, and he worked at Capcom. Like I said, Resident Evil 2, Devil May Cry, Clover, Okami, Beautiful Joe. Of course, Bayonetta is his biggest release, one of his biggest franchises from Platinum. The Wonderful 101. Of course, Scalebound was famously canceled, but that is very interesting indeed that he is leaving the studio he founded. A lot of people have been doing that as of late. Hallmark keepsake ornaments have been announced for 2023, and we got some gaming-focused ones. A Sega Dreamcast, a Legend of Zelda, both a old NES cartridge, like the Gold Zelda cartridge, as well as Link himself, a King Mickey from the Kingdom Hearts series, Donkey Kong riding a Mario Kart, Animal Crossing, a couple of Minecraft, including the Ender Dragon, a NES console, and Samus Aran from Metroid. All will be available at some point this year as a 2023 Hallmark keepsake ornament. Capcom has announced that Resident Evil 8 or Resident Evil Village for iPhone 15, yes, it will cost $60 on your phone, will be released October 30th if you have an iPhone 15. Capcom, I guess someone mused to them, would you ever be open to a buyout? And they said they would respectfully decline if Microsoft tried to buy them. They'd want a more partnership. I don't know if you can, or equal. I don't know if you can say you're equal with Microsoft there, Capcom. Oh, funny. And then, as I have been stating a bit, the SAG-AFTRA union has authorized a strike against the video game companies. And this was a vote of 98.32%. Whoa, that's a bigger amount than voted to strike against the AMPTP. But given the vote, 34,687 members cast ballots, representing 27.4.7% of eligible voters. Oh, so this is interesting. So it's 98% of the 27% of voters. So not everyone voted. That's kind of a bigger deal. Not all video game performers are going on. It doesn't mean they're going on strike or are striking yet. Again, negotiations are still ongoing. They do have the go-ahead, though, to strike if they feel it necessary. So they are currently negotiating with Activision, Disney, EA, Take-Two, Insomniac, and WB Games. Those will resume in the coming days if they are not already ongoing. They started again yesterday, so we'll see what happens. So Fran Drescher, the president of SAG-AFTRA, said, quote, "The result of this vote shows our membership understands the existential nature of these negotiations and that the time is now for these companies, which are making billions of dollars and paying their CEOs lavishly, to give our performers an agreement that keeps performing in video games as a viable career." Unquote. She also said it's time for them to pay their share, things like that. So the last time video game performers went on strike was 2016. Would be the longest strike in SAG-AFTRA's history. It was nearly a year long. I guess technically they used internal people to voice, or they just delayed the game and did the voice later. It was a very interesting time though back then. It'll be interesting to see how everything plays out though, given what's going on in Hollywood, and if they ultimately decide to strike. Video game actors have also come out and said that they're urging gamers to be, quote, be vocal and get educated, unquote. So, especially given that the writer's strike has ended. So, they voted, and wow, they've met 5 different times to bargain over a new contract and have yet to find one. But we'll see, like I said, ultimately what happens with the strike. Moving on, Sony has been hacked yet again. God, I feel like, granted, Microsoft just hands their data out to everyone. Sony continues to get hacked. I feel like their firewall is garbage. They've launched an investigation after a ransomware group has claimed to have breached their data systems. So Cybersecurity Connect has reported that a ransomware group calling itself ransomed.vc says, quote, "We have successfully compromised all of Sony's systems. We won't ransom them. We will sell the data due to Sony not wanting to pay. Data is for sale," unquote. No word yet on the validity of this. It's been floating around the internet. Sony is investigating it as we speak. Cyberpunk 2077 had its Update 2.0 released, or Cyberpunk 2077 2.0, as they're calling it, released last week, ahead of Phantom Liberty's launch this week. Apparently, it had its largest concurrent player base on Steam at over 250,000 players, its biggest since the game launched in 2020. Players have also found a loving tribute to Ken Block. We've also learned several other things in relation to the game, including the fact that Elon Musk is not in the game, despite his claims. CD Projekt Red has said that he is not. Capcom. It's a lot of Capcom news today, more than usual. President of Capcom says that game prices are too low. Capcom President Harushiro Sugimoto, speaking with Nikkei, and a translation via Kotaku, was speaking during the Tokyo Game Show last week. And he said, quote, "Development costs are about 100 times higher than during the Famicom era, but software prices have not gone up that much. Considering the fact that wages are rising in the industry as a whole, I think raising unit prices is a healthy option for business." He said also, quote, "Just because there's a recession doesn't mean you won't go to the movie theater or go to your favorite artist's concert. High-quality games will continue to sell," unquote. Look, he's not wrong. The fact that games have been the same price mostly for the last almost 30 years, it's rare that things have not gone up in price. While publishers have shifted to the $70 price mark for a lot of new games, I hope they don't go to 80 or anything like that. 70 is a lot. Hell, even Nintendo just recently moved over to 70. It's funny, though, because Capcom has yet to increase their prices on their games. This man is talking about how games are not, they should be more expensive, and he hasn't even done it on his own damn games. Like, what are you doing there, Sugimoto? Like, come on, bro. Raise the price of your games if you're going to claim it. Look, I completely understand. I've talked about on here and in general how game development costs are rising, and yes, they still do make a lot of money on them, but realistically, if we want these developers to get paid their fair share and things like that, costs are going to go up, and other demands need to be met, so game prices are going to go up. Will they go up to 80 in the near future? I doubt it. I'm sure they will stay at 70 for quite some time. Hopefully at least a decade. That's all I'm saying. Will they go up to 80 sooner than that? I hope not. Will it be another 20, 30 years at 70? Probably not, realistically. Chris Metzen has announced that he will be taking back the role of creative director at Blizzard in relation to the World of Warcraft. He's not been in that role for several years. He's moving back into it. So maybe WoW players will be happy again. Who knows? What else do we got going on? The Meta Connect was today. Meta announced a slew of new information in regards to the Meta Quest 3. It will come bundled with a game, Asgard's Wrath 2, which doesn't even come out till December. But the Meta Quest 3 will launch on October 10th. It will come with a price hike. It weighs 515 grams, 12 more grams than the Quest 2. It has more features, though. 6 advanced camera sensors that will have mixed reality features. So you can play virtual piano while sitting at your kitchen table with a full color pass-through. Look at that. Quest 3 also has new LCDs with a resolution of 2064 by 2209 per eye. More RAM at 8 gigs. It does not have eye tracking, though. The Quest 3 also uses second-generation Qualcomm Snapdragon XR2. Controllers have been redesigned. No more ring shape. They are more ergonomic and have new, different haptic feedback options. Still use 1 AA battery per controller and compatible with the Quest 3. Battery life has remained the same. They said at least 2.4 hours of gaming on a fully charged headset. Should take about 2 hours to fully charge from 0 to 100% when you use its included 18-watt power adapter. It does have Wi-Fi 6E, 90 Hz and 120 Hz refresh rate support, and supports PC VR games with support for Link and AirLink. The Quest 2 will not be discontinued as of yet. The Quest 3 will, of course, now be sold. The Quest 3, when it launches on October 10th, $499.99 for the 128 gigabyte version, or $649.99 for the 512 gigabyte version. Pre-orders are now available. Also announced, Xbox Cloud Gaming will be hitting the Meta Quest line this December. So you'll be able to play Xbox Cloud Gaming on your Meta Quest later this year. All right, I know I reported that the Activision deal will be able to be closed by the end of October. It still is the case, despite this news. The FTC has decided to revive its challenge against the deal. This is an in-house trial after the pause that was put in place during the summer, but because the court did not provide a preliminary injunction, the FTC will not be able to prevent the deal from closing on its October 18th deadline. This is getting ridiculous, especially with the fact that the CMA is allowing it to close. It's outrageous that the FTC continues to do this. I don't know what they see. They lost in court. They were just laughed into oblivion. I don't know why they're wasting their time or our taxpayer money, for that matter. I'm not usually one to rant about waste of taxpayer money, but I will in this case with whatever the FTC is doing. Netflix released some trailers today for some upcoming shows, 2 of them being video game focused. They showed off a trailer finally for their Tomb Raider: The Legend of Lara Croft animated show, which is supposedly starring Haley Atwell. It looks like it's still in development. This, of course, will be an adaptation of the most recent trilogy from Square Enix and Crystal Dynamics, the ones that are like Shadow of the Tomb Raider, Rise of the Tomb Raider, things like that. They released a trailer for their new Ubisoft partnership for Captain Laserhawk, a Blood Dragon remix, based, of course, off the Blood Dragon DLC that came out for Far Cry 3. And they announced a Devil May Cry anime coming from the team behind the Castlevania show. They also released a trailer for the new season Castlevania anime, things like that. So a lot of good anime-focused shows coming out of Netflix based on gaming. And then, of course, the biggest news in gaming this week came out late this afternoon. Jim Ryan, This is via Bloomberg. Jim Ryan plans to step down as head of PlayStation in March. He has been the head of Sony Interactive Entertainment since 2019. Will be retiring in March of 2024. Sony ended up announcing it themselves. So Jason Schreier over at Bloomberg, that man has the best sources, broke the news. Hiroki Totoki will assume the role of interim CEO starting April 1st. Sony Group Corporation President, CEO, and CFO will also become chairman of SIE. Hiroki is the current COO and CFO of Sony Group Corporation. He will also become the chairman of CIE starting next month to support Mr. Ryan in his transition. Totoki will allegedly, quote, work closely, unquote, with Sony Group Corporation chairman and CEO Kenichiro Yoshida to navigate PlayStation's future, including, quote, the succession of the SIE CEO role, unquote. Jim Ryan announced today, it's mainly, the dude lives in Europe, apparently, despite working in North America, saying, quote, after 30 years, I've made the decision to retire from Sony Interactive Entertainment in March of 2024. I've relished the opportunity to have a job I love in a very special company, working with great people and incredible partners. But I've found it increasingly difficult to reconcile living in Europe and working in North America. I will leave having been privileged to work on products that have touched millions of lives across the world. PlayStation will always be a part of my life, and I feel more optimistic than ever about the future of SIE. I want to thank Yoshida-san for placing so much trust in me and being an incredibly sensitive and supportive leader, unquote. This is a huge, huge deal. He's been working at PlayStation since 1994 as head, working at PlayStation's European branch, and held various leadership positions in the company. Of course, replaced John Kodera as president and CEO of Sony Interactive Entertainment in 2019. Jim Ryan, of course, sometimes considered out of touch with the average gamer. But that is it for gaming news. Let's head on over to see what's going on in Hollywood. All right, guys, it's a quick trip up the 5, about 2 hours, give or take. Probably at this time of night, I could probably do it in an hour. Anyway, we got some news. Guillermo del Toro was apparently working on a Star Wars film a few years ago that was going to be written by David S. Goyer. And Goyer, of course, has a interesting relationship with various fandoms around the world. People hate him for some of the movies he's written, and people love him for some of the movies he's written. It's ridiculous, if you ask me. People do not like Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice or Man of Steel, despite the fact he wrote it. Yet they love The Dark Knight Rises. He worked on the story. He didn't necessarily write it. He did the story for The Dark Knight Rises and The Dark Knight. He's also been all over the place. He did Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance. That movie's not good. He wrote Batman Begins. He wrote Blade Trinity, Blade 2, Blade, all 3 Blade movies. He's done things that people like, which, again, I don't always understand. But apparently he was working on a Star Wars movie with Guillermo del Toro, and I'm not going to lie, that would have been fucking great. I very much enjoy, the Guillermo del Toro movies, and if he was going to make a Star Wars movie, plus it was going to be about the Hutts, people. It was going to be a Guillermo del Toro movie about Jabba the Hutt's race, the Hutts, and I want a Hutt like Godfather style, Goodfellas style movie, and this could have been it, and it was robbed from us, people. It was robbed from us. It was robbed from us. So it's sucks that this isn't happening. anymore. Frustrated. Very frustrated. Very, very frustrated. Also, Todd McFarlane has come out and said that he has seen up to page 80, quote unquote, of the Spawn movie reboot. Spawn, of course, is a character he helped create. I think he owns the rights to still. And this is the movie I think that's going to star Jamie Foxx. It was moving along before the strike. Now the strike's over, so I'm sure it will get moving again. I'm looking at David S. Goyer's wiki page here still. He wrote, I know I'm going backwards a second. He wrote, co-writer on Black Ops, Black Ops 2, Black Ops Cold War. What? And he wrote for the Sandman? Okay. Why do people hate him? Anyway, moving on. DC Studios has found a permanent production home. Looks like James Gunn might be moving. But Peter Safran and James Gunn have announced that Warner Brothers Studios Leavesden in southeast England, that's currently where House of the Dragon is being shot, will be the primary hub for DC Studios production. Via Warner Brothers Discovery, it will add 10 new sound stages, 400,000 square feet of production and support space, and it will allow them to grow production capacity more than 50% from 19 to 29 sound stages. Production space is going from 1.4 million square feet to 1.78 million square feet. Construction is expected to begin sometime next year and be finished by 2027. Gunn and Safran are apparently personally consulting to, quote, ensure that their ideas are incorporated into the new studio and production facilities, unquote. So, that is interesting. I wonder if they're moving to England then, too. And speaking of DC Studios, James Gunn has announced at least 3 actors moving from the old DCEU into the DCU, and no surprise at who they are. John Cena will continue on as Peacemaker in the DCU. Viola Davis, who absolutely kills it as Amanda Waller, will be moving forward. And here's one that we kind of were all expecting. Xolo Maridueña will continue on as Jaime Reyes, the Blue Beetle, in the new DCU. All officially confirmed. It is not a final list. It is not the complete list, but the first 3 to be announced. Robert Kirkman has come out and said that to do Invincible justice, they will need at least 7 to 8 seasons, which is wild to me. I'm all for it, though. I just hope it doesn't take like 2.5 years to do a season. And speaking of Invincible, which airs on Amazon Prime Video, Amazon has announced they will be introducing advertisements into their current tier. This will begin in 2024. There will be an ad-free version available for an additional fee. Ads will appear in Prime Video content in the US, UK, Germany, and Canada in early 2024, followed by France, Italy, Spain, Mexico, and Australia later in the year. And this will be the default tier option for Prime Video as part of your Prime membership. So Prime Video is included with your Prime membership, which is $14.99 a month, or you can get Prime Video by itself for $8.99 per month. Prime members do not need to take any further action. If they're happy with the ad tier, Prime membership will remain the same. If you want to go without ads, it's an extra fee, which will be an additional $2.99 per month for U.S. Prime members. Other country pricing has yet to be announced. So pretty much everyone has been doing ads. So I've had a reckoning of this lately, and it has to do with the strikes, right? I get the ad tiers now. Because realistically, look, a lot of the money that was paid to actors and writers for their residuals has traditionally come from ad money, right? TV shows are mostly supported by ad revenue, product placement, things like that. So, and that's why technically your like traditional cable channels, not traditional cable, but like your base channels, ABC, Fox, CBS, NBC, like the original networks. That's why technically they're free, because they are all supported by advertisements. This program is supported by dot 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 dot, right? Whatever company. So a lot of that money would go on to pay for the production of the show, and then whenever that show was in reruns, that ad money on the reruns would go to help pay residuals. Obviously, there's no ads on streaming services, or there weren't. So I can understand why some of that money wasn't being paid, but at the same time, there's a subscription fee, and that should be able to cover the costs of the streaming service to produce their shows, but as well as pay for residuals and things like that. And somewhere there was a disconnect when profit was all involved. Yes, you need to have a return on investment, right? But profit should not come at the expense of paying your talent. Hell, I would take I'm perfectly fine if in a lot of shows, obviously it wouldn't work in every show, but I would be perfectly fine in some shows if there was like blatant product placement, like in the Truman Show, when like she would bust out into like an Ovaltine ad and Truman's like, who the fuck are you talking to? Like in some shows, perfectly do it. I would not care at all if they did that to keep maybe subscription costs down and be able to pay, writers and actors and shit. I would totally take it. But obviously that's not the world we live in. So ads are coming to Amazon Prime Video, despite the fact that you pay all this money for Amazon Prime already. Anyway, so I was talking earlier about Netflix releasing trailers. They've also released trailers officially for Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, the new Scott Pilgrim animated show featuring the voice cast of the movie, as well as a teaser for their live-action Squid Game reality competition show where they're giving away $4.5 million, and it looks to be a little more closer to the show than Mr. Beast's attempt at it. No surprise they have a bigger production budget. The former showrunner of Netflix's Daredevil has come out against Disney as of late. Stephen DeKnight, who was the showrunner behind Netflix's Daredevil, has calling out Disney's scam, calling them scammers, in regards to Daredevil Born Again. So, speaking to IGN, he is more with his issue with Born Again isn't a creative one, right? He says he told IGN, quote, excited for the show and supports the new creative team 100%, unquote. His issue, though, is what it has to do with union fees, pay bumps, and things like that. So, apparently, according to him, the members of IATSE, who are the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees, get full benefits, vacation, holiday pay after working on a show for 3 seasons. But if the show gets a new name, like Daredevil becoming Daredevil Born Again, or other Disney Channel examples that he says he quotes, it restarts their contract. He says, quote, it's an old Disney scam where they slightly rename a series to reset contract terms back to the first season. He said this on Twitter. He said, quote, needs to be addressed by all guilds, unions, and crushed, unquote. He said, quote, he's not going to see a penny from Daredevil Born Again because they added the Born Again and can claim it's a completely different show, with the exact same 2 lead actors playing Daredevil and Fisk, unquote. He said he also said via the strike, the picket line, quote, they've done this so many times now it's hard to count. He said, quote, the Sweet Life of Zack and Cody became the Sweet Life on Deck after 3 seasons, Liv and Maddie to Liv and Maddie Callie style after 4, and Hannah Montana to Hannah Montana Forever after 4. They tried doing it with Wizards of Waverly Place, but Selena Gomez apparently pushed back. He did say, he followed up with, quote, "No idea if Daredevil Born Again will have any continuity with the original show, but Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio, who I both adore, returning as Daredevil and Wilson Fisk sure seem to indicate some creative tether to the Netflix series. But again, Daredevil Born Again is a complete side issue as far as I'm concerned. I'm more interested in how this has been allowed to go on so long with Disney Channel shows. It just smacks of corporate shenanigans and wage theft of the highest order. Really needs to be addressed," unquote. So, I understand what he's saying in regards to the Disney shows. I also understand what he's saying with Daredevil Born Again, right? We don't know officially if the Netflix shows are quote-unquote canon or part of the current MCU timeline. They always kind of seemed a little off-kilter, right, from the rest of the MCU because they were on Netflix and they were under like Perlmutter. The other thing, and yes, because it is the same actors, technically it could reboot it even with the same actors. So it would theoretically make his point null and void. I'm not saying it should be null and void because there is some credence and he provided proof of that. But if it is a reboot, then technically his argument wouldn't matter in this particular case. So it's a bit of a fine line to kind of walk. I get it, totally understand. I'm on his side completely. If that is something they're doing, that's pretty fucking shady. But the unions kind of allowed it to just happen, and they're fully aware. So I don't know what's going on there. Anyway, moving on. The Expendables 4 opened this past weekend to a franchise low of $8.3 million. No surprise, that series has seen diminishing returns with every new release. Martin Scorsese is once again asking for everyone to save cinema from franchise culture. I kind of agree and I kind of disagree with him. He was speaking with GQ in a new profile saying, quote, "There are going to be generations now that think movies are only those. That's what movies are. They already think that, which means that we have to fight back stronger. And it's going to come from the grassroots level. It's got to come from the filmmakers themselves. And you'll have, the Safdie brothers, and you'll have Chris Nolan, you know what I mean? And hit them from all sides. Hit them from all sides and don't give up. Let's see what you got. Go out there and do it. Go reinvent. Don't complain about it, but it's true because we've got to save cinema," unquote. And I get it, right? He's an auteur, if you will. Granted, Marty's movies have not been perfect as he's gotten older. They're not as good as they used to be. I do really want to watch Flowers of the Blood Moon, I think it is. Something. Whatever his new movie is that's coming out with De Niro and Leo. But it's... Yes, I understand cinema has turned into franchise. And I'm getting franchise fatigue in general, right? I do like watching non-franchise movies from time to time. The problem is the other movies don't make money. Or they don't make the money that franchise movies make. And that's the problem. Hollywood is focused on returns. Profit, profit, profit. They're not going to take the risk on a smaller movie because they're not going to make the returns on it. And it sucks. I know streaming does a lot of those smaller movies. And I say this as, like I said, a fan of franchise movies. But then again, I also love every Wes Anderson movie, right? And that's not exactly $1 billion movie that's going to be coming out. So I wish there were more movies like that. Granted, the amount of directors is shrinking every day as well, or good directors. I'm sure there's good directors out there. They just haven't been given the chance because big studios don't want to give them the money. And indie films might not get the pull they need to find a wider audience. I'm sure there's a ton of movies out there that I would love, but I don't even know where they are. I'd have to go digging and searching for them. And frankly, I know this is a shitty excuse. I don't have the time to do that, right? And I'll try and find little stuff on Netflix or Paramount and things like that. And I do try to watch movies like that. But again, I don't always have the time. And it sucks. And I know it's a shitty excuse, but in reality, I don't have time for everything, guys. I don't have time for everything. So maybe I'll skip doing TV and movies, right, on the show, and I'll go hold on to video games, and maybe I'll have more time to watch these movies. I doubt it, realistically, but it just, that's the reality we live in. And yes, they can fight all they want, but Hollywood wants their returns. We have gotten a new trailer for Rick and Morty Season 7, finally featuring the new voices for Rick and for Morty. They will be two separate people. Still don't have a name on who is playing them. Morty sounds good. Rick sounds a little off. And I will reserve final judgment until I get a full episode and not a trailer of different things interspersed together. Let me see. That's not... The Golden Globes have added 2 new categories to their ranks for the upcoming awards. And they include blockbuster movies. So, Best Blockbuster and Best Performance in a Stand-Up Comedy have been added. This is being reported by Variety. 8 films will be eligible for Best Blockbuster, regardless of whether they premiered in theaters or streaming platforms. Golden Globes deems movies eligible for nomination in blockbuster category if they grossed at least $150 million during release, $100 million of which should have come from the domestic box office. As for movies that premiere on streaming services like Netflix, Hulu, or others, it must be data gathered from recognized industry sources will be considered when determining their eligibility. So, for movies that might be included in the upcoming Golden Globes, Barbie, which is the highest grossing movie of the year, Super Mario Brothers movie, Guardians of the Galaxy, and Oppenheimer technically all qualify. Best Performance in Stand-Up Comedy, which I think is finally a great award. Comics deserve awards. It is for traditional stand-up format. So, to be considered, you have to have a comedy special that have aired on cable, broadcast basic, premium, or pay-per-view, or streaming. Only 6 comedians will be nominated in the category. They must have been released on a recognized media platform, and individual social media accounts will not be considered. Oh, that sucks to all the comedy on TikTok. Via the Golden Globes, it says, quote, "The Golden Globes has a rich history of supporting and celebrating the work of comedians, and we're thrilled to honor their brilliance alongside outstanding motion picture and television performances of the year. Additionally, we are proud to recognize the hard work and innovation that goes into making a film that is both a blockbuster and artistically exceptional," unquote. Of course, the Academy Awards tried instituting a outstanding popular film, but it has yet to be included yet. We'll see what happens. The Golden Globes will air January 7th, 2024, as they were delayed. No, that was the Emmys that was delayed. Golden Globes will be in January. Dan Harmon has opened up about his former relationship with Justin Roiland in a new profile with The Hollywood Reporter. Has been very open. Apparently, they have not spoken since 2019. Harmon said, quote, "If I'd felt like I was imposing something, I would never have done it. If anything, what I wanted was for Justin and I both to be able to be increasingly lazy and not show up for work. That was the dream. And then I'd come to find out later it was like, oh, Harmon brought in his Harmon writers, and man, that is not how I saw it," unquote. I guess Justin Roiland had drawn back from the writer's room, wasn't as heavily involved. These are all things we've heard already over the years. Harmon also said, quote, "Honestly, I wasn't sure what he was saying, other than maybe I feel like I'm in your shadow and I wish I wasn't," unquote. So their hostility had started to grow. Also in the interview, Mike Lazo, who was the former vice president of Adult Swim, said, quote, "Dan would be in the writer's room and Justin would be running radio control cars around the studio. I remember I'd get frustrated waiting on his scripts, but then they'd arrive and they would be masterpieces," unquote. I guess Harmon followed up saying, quote, I always felt like Justin wanted everybody to make him feel more comfortable, and I was just like, everybody wants to make you comfortable. Communicate. Tell us how to do that. I was freaking out about the whole thing because I wanted the partnership to function. I wanted him happy because when he's happy, we have a hit on our hands, unquote. I guess this is, so Dan Harmon followed up with, they last spoke over text in 2019, saying, quote, he said things he'd never said before about being unhappy, and I remember saying to him the last time we spoke in person, like, I'm worried about you, and I don't know what to do about that except to give you all the string, and also just say I'm scared that you're not going to come back. But then this conversation became unprecedentedly confrontational. I think that's as far as I get to take the story. At that point, we're no longer both there for it, and it starts to become not only unfair for me to continue, but totally uncomfortable because from there, a friendship goes away, and I still don't fully understand why. Unquote. I saw another quote from him saying, like, he's not really anyone to judge, but he allowed certain things to happen. So it's unfortunate that a lot of these things have happened. I'm happy that Dan Harmon has finally spoke out, but it lends credence to some of the other claims about Justin Roiland in the production behind Rick and Morty. The biggest news, of course, is that the strike officially ended today. On Sunday night, a tentative deal was announced. A tentative agreement, was announced technically on Monday, and more details would follow. We learned, though, that the Writers Guild leadership unanimously accepted the terms, and then announced that today the strike ended at midnight last night, 12:01 a.m. Pacific time this morning, via the Writers Guild's official Twitter. Quote, the WGA reached a tentative agreement with the AMPTP. Today, our negotiating committee, WGA-W board, and WGAE council all voted unanimously to recommend the agreement. The strike ends at 12:01 a.m. Check out our deal, unquote. So that was the WGA West and the WGA East. Now it has to go to the membership to vote and accept. They're free to go back to work in the ratification process. Going back to work will not affect their right to make a final determination on contract approval via the Guild. It is a 148-day work stoppage that officially came to an end today. It is the longest WGA strike in history, second longest, as the 1988 walkout was 154 days. Obviously, the SAG-AFTRA strike is ongoing. The WGA still supports them. The terms that have been accepted, there's been a lot. And let me go to their website to see if I can get the terms that were met. This will go through May 1st, 2026. So technically, we could get another strike in 3 years. I highly doubt it. So minimums increased. Most NBA minimums will increase by 5% on ratification of the contract, 4% on May 2nd, 2024, and 3.5% on May 2nd, 2025. Minimums and rates increase less, mostly by 3% each year. Increased health and pension contribution rate, 0.5% in the second year of the agreement, from 11.5 to 12%. Increased health and pension contributions for writing teams. Big ones on artificial intelligence here. Regulations for the use of artificial intelligence. AI can't write or rewrite literary material. AI-generated material will not be considered source material under the MBA, meaning that AI-generated material can't be used to undermine a writer's credit or separated rights. A writer can choose to use AI when performing writing services if the company consents and provided that the writer follows applicable company policies, but the company can't require the writer to use AI software when performing writing services. The company must disclose to the writer if any materials given to the writer have been generated by AI or incorporate AI-generated material. the WGA reserves the right to assert that exploitation of a writer's material to train AI is prohibited by NBA or other law. In terms of terms for screenwriter employment, a guaranteed second step, which is required whenever a writer is hired for a first draft screenplay for 200% of minimum or less, including original and non-original screenplays. Also applies to spec purchases. Accelerated payment structure for flat deals. Screenwriters hired on a flat deal basis for 200% of minimum or less must be paid 50% of their fee on commencement. Streaming features. When a feature-length project is made for streaming with a budget of $30 million or more, the minimum initial compensation for a story and teleplay is $100,000, an 18% increase from the current rate, and a 26% increase in the residual base. Combined with foreign residual improvements described below, this results in a 3-year residual of $216,000 for projects. Improved terms and high-budget subscription video on demand. Increased foreign streaming visuals. Viewership-based streaming bonus must be provided, so viewership data. Streaming data transparency. The companies agree to provide the guild, subject to a confidentiality agreement, the total number of hours streamed, both domestically and internationally, or self-produced high-budget streaming programs, e.g. a Netflix original series. The guild may share information with the membership in aggregated form. Premium for pilot and backup scripts. Minimum terms for advertising-supported streaming. Increased compensation for series employment, weekly pay, and staffed writer script fees. Weekly pay increases, writer-produced weekly rates. Development room premiums. Staff writer script fees. Development rooms. Post-greenlight rooms and how many minimum of writers are required, depending on how many episodes. So, the following requirements are triggered depending on the number of episodes ordered, unless a single writer is engaged to write all episodes. So, number of episodes, 6 or fewer, a minimum of 3 writers in the room, a minimum of 3 writer-producers in writer's room, 7 to 12 episodes, 5 writers, 3 writer-producers, 13 plus episodes, 6 writers, 3 writer-producers. Writers in production, improved options on exclusivity and span protections. There's a whole lot of stuff. It's a big, long thing. You guys can go read it. But the gist of it is, it looks like most of their demands were met. And it looks like AI will not be writing scripts. And that is a good thing. I'm happy the writers won. Let's see what happens with the SAG strike. That's kind of it for TV and movie news. I do want to talk about Ahsoka. Another great episode. We finally got to see Thrawn kind of show off his ability to be calculating and 7 steps ahead. Not fully, just because that would need a lot more time than allows for a single episode to focus on all the characters. It did unfortunately end on a cliffhanger, but the stuff we got from Baylan Skoll and from the return of Ezra, all great. We got an appearance from C-3PO, of all people. We got to see more of Coruscant during the day, which is not something we get to see often in Star Wars in general. Anthony Daniels, of course, like I said, showed up as C-3PO, officially the only person to appear in the most Star Wars live-action projects. I think he's at 7 now. No, he's been in... Technically, it was only his voice in The Phantom Menace. So he's been in all 9 films of the Skywalker saga. He had a small appearance in Rogue One. He was in Obi-Wan. He is now in... and he's now in, why can't I say, Ahsoka. So that's 9, 10, 11, 12. He's been in 12 live-action projects, not to mention all the voice work he's done over the years as well. Anthony Daniels has officially appeared in the most Star Wars. The Star Warsiest of Star Wars actors. No, it was a great episode. Thrawn is great. We got to see an awesome lightsaber fight. We got to see Ezra back in action. Sabine kind of finally being Sabine, really. And Ahsoka finally fitting like the Ahsoka we're used to, right? She's kind of been in this weird place. Hell, there was even a Hayden Christensen appearance, again, this time in hologram form, giving Ahsoka training, but it was him from the Clone Wars giving Ahsoka training. So it was a great episode overall. I cannot wait to see how they end the show, the season. I don't know if it's getting a second season. I don't know if this will just lead into Mando Season 4 or potentially the Dave Filoni, quote-unquote, Heir to the Empire movie. We don't know what it's being called yet. But Ahsoka, honestly, becoming one of the best Star Wars shows. I will put it above Andor at this point because of Thrawn, mostly because of Thrawn and Baylan Skoll. And it sucks that Ray Stevenson passed away, because I don't know. We don't know what his fate is in the show yet, but I really hope that it sucks I'm saying this. I hope we lose his character, because the fact that he's not around to continue playing Baylan Skoll is not a world I want. I don't want a show that could have had him because his character was still around, but we can't have him because Ray himself is not around. So I'd rather they take care of his character at this point, because it would be better. It would be a lot easier. It sucks, and it's kind of morbid, but I think ultimately that'd be the better option. But that is it for movies and TV. Let's talk about my top 10 80s family movies, shall we, as we wind down on my top 10 80s movies in each category. All right, so we're wrapping up here on episode 281 of Nick's Nerd News. So I want to talk about my top 10 favorite 80s family movies. And you might, you know what, I've been surprising a lot of you, I think, with every one of these top 10s. And I think I'm going to surprise you with what number 10 is, honestly. But my number 10, obviously this was because of the strikes, not talking about a lot of new movies, and been going over. So what, we did pretty much everything. Now we're on to 80s family movies. There's been a lot of overlap between them, right? But what I feel is the best way is, I think these movies solidify family movies more than anything. They don't really, yes, they straddle genre lines, but I think family is what fits them the best. And 10 is a good indicator of that, if you ask me. But this is the second to last week for 80s movies. Next week we'll do 80s drama. We don't have a full 10 because I haven't seen a whole lot of 80s drama. But then we'll move into the 90s, regardless of the status of the strikes, in 2 weeks. That's okay. Like I said, I want to keep talking about old movies. I think you guys will get a better understanding of movies that I like, movies I appreciate. I know we're 5.5 years in on the podcast, and you're finally learning about some of my favorite movies, right? But that's kind of where we're at. So let's not dawdle any longer and talk about my favorite 80s family movies. At number 10, and this is one of those that straddles a line of multiple genres, E.T. Extraterrestrial, released June 11th, 1982, directed by Steven Spielberg. Yes, this is a lot of people would probably put this higher. Yes, it's a movie I enjoy, and it's fun, and I love the music from John Williams. And yes, it's quintessential Spielberg. Do I watch if it's on TV? Most of the time, yes. Is it a movie I'm going to maybe pull off the shelf and watch randomly? Probably not. And I have a lot of honorable mentions on this list too. But realistically, E.T. makes it into the top 10. Movies that didn't make it into the top 10, The Adventures of Baron Munchausen, UHF, The Wizard, Annie, Popeye, Neverending Story. So, like, those are movies I like, but not top 10 on family. And E.T., like I said, edges those ones out. Like I said, 1982 came out the same month as The Thing. It's a fun movie. Music is amazing. Everyone knows, the chase scene Everyone knows Yoda's got a cameo technically in it. You know, the logo of Elliot and E.T. flying across the moon became the logo for Amblin Entertainment, Steven Spielberg's production company. So, Elliot. It's quotable too, right? Drew Barrymore's in it. It's a fun movie. It's a fun movie. Almost got a sequel, never did. At number 9, and I think a lot of you are going to be like, what? This is a movie I very much enjoy. If it's on TV, I will watch it. Hands down, I will watch it. Sesame Street presents Follow That Bird, released August 2nd, 1985. It is a movie where Big Bird runs away from Sesame Street. Yeah, I know. I love it. It's fun. There's like the Muppets make a cameo in it. There's a lot of other things that cameo in it. A lot of celebrities. You know, it's typical of Sesame Street, the Muppet movies, things like that. And it's interesting to see Big Bird or a Sesame Street character outside of Sesame Street because we don't really see that. Snuffleupagus is in it. There's great musical numbers in it. I still think it's hilarious that they haven't really made a movie since then, but I very much enjoy Follow That Bird. Number 8, a great classic movie, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, released June 23rd, 1989. Honey, I Think I Shrunk the Children. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Yes, they would go on to make several sequels. Yes, they're supposed to make another one. I don't know what's going on with that. Rick Moranis at his finest. The kids living in or trying to survive in a backyard when they've been shrunk down to the size of an ant, essentially smaller than an ant realistically. The set production on this movie is great. The comedy is great. It is a fun movie. If you've never seen it, you should definitely watch it. Again, maybe with kids that might be a little bit older just because of the fight between the ant and the scorpion. Spoilers on a 30-plus-year-old movie, but it is fun, and it's very enjoyable. And then please follow it up with Honey, I Blew Up the Kid, because that's another great movie. That will be on our 90s list for sure. Number 7, Big, starring Tom Hanks, released June 2nd, 1988. Of course, living out the dream of every young boy, becoming an adult staying a kid in an adult's body and then getting to run a toy company, essentially. Falling in love with a woman, of all things. It's a wild story. A little rapey in today's... No, it's not rapey. But Tom Hanks, comedy, great. I love Big. You guys probably enjoy Big, too. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it. Very much enjoy Big. At number 6... Pee-wee's Big Adventure, released August 9th, 1985. I'm a rebel, Dottie. This is a movie, again, another movie I will sit and watch if it's on TV. I very much enjoy Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Pee-wee's on search for his bike. They're so much fun. Tell him Large Marge sent ya. Every time I drive to Palm Springs or Phoenix or anything like that, I pass the Cabazon Dinosaurs. I always think of Pee-wee and Simone up in watching the sunrise. I very much enjoy Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Asking for about the basement in the Alamo. And here's another surprise movie I think you'll be surprised at. Number 5, Troop Beverly Hills, starring Shelley Long, released March 14th, 1989. Carla Gugino's in it as well. A Beverly Hills mom decides to take over her daughter's technically Girl Scout troop, and she decides to go all in and kind of take over and win their cookie contest and other contests, and it's a great family movie, and it's funny, and I think it's a Disney movie. But what I really enjoy about it is it teaches you to be humble a bit, right? It's not always about winning and things like that. I know there's that Melissa McCarthy movie, The Boss or whatever, that came out a few years ago that was similar in vein. movie's funny, but not good in any sense. But I very much enjoy Troop Beverly Hills with Shelley Long. Craig T. Nelson's in it as well, but Shelley Long is a troop leader in Beverly Hills. At number 4, no surprise here, making the top 5, The Goonies, released June 7th, 1985. Goonies never say die. You know, the kids go on a adventure to find Willie's gold. And, hey, you guys. I love The Goonies. It's a great movie. It was one of my brother's favorite movies growing up as well. If you have not watched this with your kids, if you have kids, or if you haven't watched it in general, I need you to stop what you're doing, put me on pause, go watch The Goonies. All right, you back? Cool. The Goonies is a great movie, produced by Steven Spielberg. A lot of people would go on. Josh Brolin, Ke Huy Quan. One of the Corey's is in it. Feldman, I think, is in it. Corey Feldman. Okay, it is Corey Feldman. And then Sean Astin, of course. Samwise Gamgee himself. Plus, you got to do the truffle shuffle, baby. You got to do the truffle shuffle. But, yeah, Goonies never say die, baby. Goonies never say die. Fun. Number 3, never get involved in a land war in Asia. The Princess Bride, released September 25th, 1987. My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. I'm going to kill you. Great movie. I love Andre the Giant in it. He plays Fezzik. It's such a fun movie. Rodents of Unusual Size. The Dread Pirate Roberts. It's just a fun movie. You got Peter Falk reading the story to a young Ben Savage. No, that's not Ben Savage. That's his brother, Fred Savage. And it's just, Billy Crystal absolutely killing it in like a completely improv scene. It is a hilarious and fun movie. Plus, it has that great line about being Sicilian. Never go against a Sicilian when death is on the line. What a great line. What a great line. Wallace Shawn. You guys need to watch The Princess Bride. It's a fun movie. Number 2, Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Released June 22nd, 1988. Please, Eddie. I think a lot of kids had a sexual awakening watching this movie with one Jessica Rabbit. It featured the first time of Bugs Bunny and Mickey Mouse on screen together in the same frame, no less. Dip. It featured Dip, a concoction that could murder tunes. The story is based on, it's actually based on like racial inequality in Los Angeles in like the 40s and stuff. Kind of true too about highways and streetcars and things like that. If it's not the most kid-friendly family movie, it is a family movie, but it's a little more heavy on the adult themes. Yes, kids could watch it and they probably wouldn't get what was going on. Roger Rabbit, of course, became a very popular character. There was a ride at Disneyland for a long time. They only recently took it out. But it is one of the best family movies, one of my favorite movies, too, in general, Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And I think you guys are going to be surprised at my number 1. My number 1 movie from the 1980s in the family category is The Muppets Take Manhattan, released July 13th, 1984. It is the third Muppet movie. It is set in Manhattan. Kermit and the gang essentially move to New York, and Kermit ends up losing his memory and gets like an office job. At the end, him and Miss Piggy, of course, get married. It is, again, one of my favorite movies. This is a movie I will always watch if it is on TV. Like, I am... So it's the third Muppet movie. It's directed by Frank Oz. wow, they wouldn't make a movie for almost 10 years after that. It is a great, fun, hilarious movie. It introduced Rizzo to the Muppets universe, if you will. It featured a lot of other characters. Again, it's set in New York. It's a fun movie. Who's in this movie? I don't know. Lonnie Price. Who is that? Cheryl McFadden, Graham Brown, Jim Henson, of course, in it. One of his last roles as, one of his last times as Kermit the Frog, Rolf the Dog, Dr. Teeth, Swedish Chef, all that. It actually was it was the last movie he was in as them. Frank Oz, of course, is in it. Notable guest cameos: Francis Bergen, Art Carney, James Coco, Dabney Coleman, Elliot Gould, Gregory Hines, Ed Koch, Mayor Ed Koch, John Landis, Linda Lavin, Liza Minnelli as herself, Joan Rivers, hilarious in it. Brooke Shields is in it, Vincent Sardi Jr. as well. It is such a fun movie. If you guys had not seen it before, you need to watch Muppets Take Manhattan. I think it's on Disney+. It's a great soundtrack as well, which the closing medley, great. I do like the original Muppet movie, I do, but I enjoy the Muppets Take Manhattan even more. Like I said, if you've never seen it, you should, because it's great. I love it. And those were my top 10 family movies from the 1980s. So again, E.T. at number 10, Sesame Street Presents Follow That Bird at 9, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids at 8, Big at 7, Pee-wee's Big Adventure at 6, Troop Beverly Hills at 5, The Goonies at 4, The Princess Bride at 3, Who Framed Roger Rabbit at 2, and The Muppets Take Manhattan at number 1. Thank you guys for listening. That is Nick's Nerd News, episode 281 in the books, September 27th, to your ears. Thank you guys for listening. I will catch you guys on the flip side.
This has been a production of Nick's Nerd News. Please do not use without implicit faxed permission. And yes, that means with a fax machine.